Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to decorate, or how I decorated these tins that I found at a thrift store. I found them for 25 cents each. I found 3 of them, and I am going to decorate this one on this YouTube video. So I found a print, a botanical print in one of the books that we found, and it's kind of like brown and yellow and white. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some paint onto the top to kind of cover up the original design. If some of the design shows through, that's okay, because I'm going to put the print on top. But I do want to make sure that I get the edges pretty good, because you'll be able to see the edges. So while that dries, I'm going to go ahead and prepare the print that I chose to go on the top of the tin cover. And this video is kind of off the screen a little bit, but I do get better later on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom of the tin, flip it upside down, and put it on my print of the portion of the print that I want to show. And then I'm going to go ahead and trace around the tin with an X-Acto knife to cut it out so that it fits nicely onto the top of the tin. This worked pretty well, but there were still some parts where the blade didn't go all the way through the paper, so I'm just going to kind of go ahead and trim those so that it pops nicely out, so that I can start to glue it on the top of the tin. So now that I have it all nicely cut, I'm going to make sure and line it up on the top of the tin and make sure it fits and there's no overhang. And then I'm going to apply a thin coat of Mod Podge on the top so that I can secure the print to the top. Now that that's all on, I'm going to take the print and align it so that it's directly on the top of the tin. Make sure it's lined up on all the edges and kind of press down. Make sure I don't have any air bubbles. And make sure all the sides look nice. And then I don't have any drips of glue seeping out of the side. And then I'm going to do a top coat of Mod Podge on the print, but also on the sides. Because this was like a metal tin, the paint that I used will chip off or scratch. And so the Mod Podge will make sure that it seals that and covers it so it won't get banged up. This will also seal the edges of the print along the tin so that they don't peel up or get torn. It just gives it a nice finished look. And again, when you're working with Mod Podge, just make sure it's like a thin coat. You're brushing it on. I'm specifically using the matte finish. I like that better than the glossy. And then you just let that dry before you embellish the top. Fast forward, it's all dry, and now I'm trying to pick my items that I want to decorate the top. So I'm going to do like a little bit of a layered approach. I have a vintage button. I have one of the Dollar Tree wood embellishments that I soaked in hot water and peeled, so it's a little bit thinner. I have a piece of a wedding dress, and so I just cut along the beaded area of the wedding dress, and then I have a petal underneath. So that's, you can see half of the petal there. And then I'm using the 3-in-1 glue to apply it to the top of the tin. And then I'm just going to go layer by layer and then put it onto the top, make sure everything's glued nicely. Sometimes you have to use hot glue depending on what materials you're using. But I actually threaded the button through the layers and then now I'm gluing it down so it's all together. So now I want to do a little bit more on the other corner. And again, these are from the Dollar Tree. If you soak them in hot water, you can peel them so that they're thinner. And you get 3 or 4 out of 1. So it's a really good deal. I'm going to whitewash this a little bit. I want it to kind of stand out from the print. And so I'm going to whitewash both of these so that there's a little coloring to them. And then I did a circle punch on another print that I had, and I'm using kind of like a black and white print, and then again using 3-in-1 to adhere it to the top of the tin. And then I had a little piece of the tulle left from the wedding dress piece that I cut out. So I'm going to layer that on next. And then again, I'm using the 3-in-1. And then I'm going to go ahead and put on these wood leaves. And again, using the 3-in-1 to put these ones on as well. And then next I found this brown vintage button, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of an acorn, so it kind of goes along with the nature theme that I have going on. This one I'm going to apply with hot glue just to make sure that it stays nice. The 3-in-1 doesn't dry as fast as I want it to when I'm dealing with bigger items like buttons. And that is the top. So now I'm going to work on the bottom. I'm thinking I want like a page underneath so that when they pull out the mini journal, they have a vintage page that's adhered to the bottom of the tin as well, just for an extra embellishment. So I chose this vintage book page, and it has really pretty titles for their chapters. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and use my X-Acto knife and kind of cut around it, making sure that it will fit in the bottom of the tin. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and lift that tin and kind of pull this out. Again, the blade didn't go all the way through some of the pages, so be kind of careful so you don't tear. Even if you do, you're gonna apply it with Mod Podge, so you can always fix it as well. There is this little piece that didn't go all the way through, so I'll quick pop that out. And then I'm going to put it in the bottom of my tin just to make sure that it fits without any wrinkles on the edge. And it fits good. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out and then put some glue down on the bottom. So for this tin, I'm using the 3-in-1 glue, but on the next tins that I did, I used Mod Podge on the bottom as well. So it's just kind of a preference thing. I like the Mod Podge just because I brushed it on, so it was a little bit thinner, but this still ended up turning out pretty good too. So now that I have the glue on there, I'm going to go ahead and put my paper back in and then pressing down along the edges, making sure I don't have any bubbles, and then making sure it fits really good. The book page that I chose had some natural patina to it, but I wanted to add a little bit more just to go with the brown tones that I have on the top of the tin. So I'm using my distressed ink, and then I'm just going to kind of go around the edges and in the middle and give it a little more of a distressed look to it before I put the sealer coat on the top. Now that I have it distressed the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and take Mod Podge and then just go over all of the top and along the edges. This will create a seal for that book page so it doesn't get ripped, torn, or it won't start peeling up on the edge. And then just making sure you have a full coat all the way around and brushing that on evenly. Again, this is the matte finish that I'm using. So the bottom is done. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. And while that dries, I'm going to finish my mini journal and I will show you what that looks like. So I went ahead and measured the tin. I believe these are Altoid tins. So it ended up being 4.5 by 2.75. And then I'm going to go just a touch smaller than that for my journal, just so it fits in there nicely without having to kind of jam it in there. So I've created the signatures with pages that go along with the theme. And now I'm just using a blade to make sure that I'm cutting them at the proper length and width. And then I wanted some fold-ins as well, so I'm building those into my signature before I start decorating. All right, so this is what the signature looks like for the mini journal. Some book pages, some vintage prints out of a book. The cover is made from linen paper that I stamped with a floral stamp. And then I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that it fits nicely without having to perfect. It does really good. So people will be able to embellish the journal, add stuff, and then it'll still fit nicely. I usually keep the majority of my journals as naked journals and with a lot of extra blank space, just so that people that purchase them can decorate them in their own style. But I do like to add just a little bit of embellishment, and so I'm going to do this stencil that works along with the nature theme, and then use some of the distressed ink to create a little bit of a pattern on this blank page. And then when I was building my signature, I created some fold-ins. So I need to go ahead and glue down the two sides so that it creates a pocket. And I take 3-in-1 and put it in these fine tip applicators. You can find them at Hobby Lobby or on Amazon. It just gives you a finer line when you're doing detailed adhesive. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a line of adhesive and then fold it back over, and then make sure I hold that down just for a few seconds so that it dries, and then this creates a tuck-in spot. And we have another one here, so I'm going to do the same thing, 2 fine lines, and then fold it over to create the tuck-in spot. So then going along with the nature theme and the brown and the cream tones, I'm going to go ahead and distress the entire book. I'm going to do some of the edges and then some of the pages as well, just to get that vintagey look that I like. Now that that's done, I also found this cute embellishment floral from the Dollar Tree. So I added that, and then I'm going to create one of the tuck-in pieces. And so I took an old book page and I kind of ripped it, and I'm just kind of putting it in there to make sure it fits, to see what kind of width I needed. And then I'm going to rip it down again, and then that creates a little book that's going to be able to slide into that tuck-in spot. And then I wanted to add some vintage ribbon onto the tuck-in just so that it gives it kind of like a pull tab and people realize that it pulls out. So I found this lace yellow and white ribbon that I'm going to use. And I'm going to use 3-in-1 and then go ahead and glue it down onto the cover. And then when I'm flipping it over, you'll notice that I'm leaving a section on the edge when I glue it down, and that creates the little pull tab so that will hang out of the tuck-in spot. So I put my glue down, and then I'm going to go ahead and fold that ribbon over, creating a little bit of excess on the folded side, and then I will cut off the excess ribbon. And then that gives you a little bit of a pull tab. So doing it this way, the page still opens just like a book. You have your pull tab there. I'm just going to make sure it's all glued down nice. And then you can go ahead and tuck it in your tuck spot. And then I added a few more tuck spots and pull tabs and some more stenciling, but for the most part it is a naked journal so that whoever purchases this can go ahead and decorate it on their own. And it's done.